Good morning. Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge. Started off with my Cuban coffee and milk. We're going to have a very special guest this morning. La Gaceta's Patrick Manteiga is in the waiting room, and he's going to be joining me, Stephanie Pointer, and Keela shortly. I wanted to plug in one more time. I plugged this event last Saturday, and I wanted to make mention of it this morning because it's today. My two colleagues, Peter Bradshaw and Josh Sheridan, they're going to have a boxing exhibition at 7:30 today. It's for a very good cause. It's for a toy drive. So if you're interested, go check that out, please. I might check it out. I might be there today to watch them go at it for a very good cause. And I also wanted to, I've never met this person. I don't know who this person is. I don't. But they've become pretty popular locally here on social media. Ben Banneker. I don't know who Ben Banneker is, but I'd like to bid me and Ben Banneker online through social media. We do communicate, and he or she, I don't know who this is, has been gracious enough to compliment me every now and again on some of what I do in the community through broadcasting and bringing attention to important issues. So thank you, Ben. I don't know who you are, but good morning. I told you that this morning's intro song was going to be dedicated to you, boxes, because Florida You Judges crew, we don't fit in boxes. We don't. We do what we think is important. We do what we believe in, regardless of who it offends. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce a gentleman, Patrick Manteiga from La Gaceta, who we have to be very grateful that his publication, La Gaceta, which is in 3 languages, by the way, Italian, Spanish, and English, it's been a mainstay here locally, journalistically, for about 100 years. And we're very grateful, or should be very grateful, for his presence here, because he often calls balls and strikes with what I just said. The principle of calling balls and strikes no matter who gets offended. So, hi, good morning, Patrick.
How you doing, Haiti?
I'm doing good. You seem to have been
Good morning.
momentarily, but we can hear you.
Good morning.
Yeah, you're continuing to break up a little bit.
Okay, so let's work through that. I think, Stephanie, you seem to not be having any technical difficulties. Keela's good. Pat, let me make a suggestion. Do you have a router near you?
Yeah.
Router? Okay.
I can hear you.
Get closer to the router, and if not, it's fine. Just
I can do that.
Yeah, get nearer to your router. That'd be great. And while he's doing that, this is the La Gaceta publication. That's their February 2022 edition, and this is a great publication. I get a copy every Friday in my mailbox.
Me too. Best $35 you'll spend every year.
That's the truth. I just pretty much, honestly, to be honest, I just read the column as we heard it. That's what I read, and it's juicy often, and it's good, and I get it. I get my copy when I go pick up my mail at my post office, and I'll sometimes sit in the car because I can't wait to come home to read it. So.
Well, I appreciate that, Haiti.
Yeah. So, 50 cents, or you should subscribe. I subscribe, and I just get it mailed to me directly to my mailbox. So, Patrick, what do you think we should be talking? What's the latest news headlines that you've been covering or that you think merits discussion?
Well, I wrote something recently about one of our school board members, Stacy Hahn, and the fact that she was working for a nonprofit, and that nonprofit has a mission of telling children school choices and some of those choices are other than public school. And she's being paid $100,000 for this mission. And it just seems odd that somebody that we're paying to run public schools as a school board member is telling kids they should, go to private schools, charter schools, homeschool. It just seems like a cross mission.
Well, we do see that often, though. In the past, I know that persons in your party have had a face of not being on board with charter schools, but they in fact have taken money from them too. I'm not gonna.
It's absolutely a conflict of interest.
That happens often. She's not the first one. Yes.
Well, no, you're talking about political contributions. She's actually working for them. I mean, I don't know too many who have actually been working for nonprofits to promote school choice.
I hear what you're saying. That is a distinction for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was referring to many of these.
I mean, $100,000 is a lot of money. We're not talking about a $500 contribution, $10,000, $10,000, $100,000 is a lot of money on a yearly basis.
So what do we do about that, Stephanie?
Well, in my opinion, she either needs to step down from her position on the school board, or she needs to step down from that position at that nonprofit. But what it all boils down to is how can you possibly work both of those positions, because they conflict with one another, period. I mean, how can you make the best choices for the school district if you're also making the best choices for
private schools,
and for charter schools and whatnot? I mean, it's absolutely a conflict of interest. There's no doubt about that.
When is she up for re-election?
She's got I think she's got another couple of years before she's up for election.
Yeah.
And she had a recent election. She went through it pretty easily. I think there's somebody who's contacted us who wants to do an ethics complaint against her. So we'll see if that has any legs. Part of the other issue is that this company wants to work with the public school district. So they want a memorandum of understanding. Well, does she vote on it? Does she tell the school administrator who he shall hire? Does she tell him to go ahead and sign this memorandum? So it has some conflicts down the road, because of course she wants to work with the district in order to find these kids and then send them somewhere else.
And part of the issue with this redistribution of public school funds is it actually drains public schools of funding through other channels. So, for example, and I have a little bit of experience with this. For example, the school district is responsible for monitoring these private schools who get public school funds. So they're having to pay administrators $150,000, $200,000 a year to babysit where the funding goes. They also are required to ensure that federal funding stays with those kids. So because kids who are considered to be Title I, they are that funding has to go with them, so that it's following them through other channels, through contractors. And I worked for one for 4 or 5 years, where I worked in a private school as a contractor, and I got paid $23 an hour. I don't know, but they billed the school district at about $85 an hour. So the school district is paying certain teachers, paying for certain teachers to be making those kind of funds, because the federal government said just because you want to give away state funding doesn't mean that you give away the federal funding. That funding needs to follow those kids. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that people really don't see. And I think it's really important for folks to understand that when you start giving away school money, there's other things that go with it that are a problem as well. And I believe, Stacey Hahn, and this is my personal experience with her. I have asked for meetings with all of the school board officials, and she's one of the 3 people who refused to meet with me. And she's my district. I'm like, really?
She was,
You're an elected official and you don't have time to meet with me? Okay. I know who I'll be, I know who I won't be stomping for next election cycle. And I personally handed out 3,000 slates the last election. So I'm not playing that. I will remember that. There's two others that didn't bother to meet with me as well. So I just don't have any use for somebody who has no time for their constituents.
yeah. She hasn't talked to me. She won't talk to the St. Pete Times.
So Patrick,
so
Go on, Patrick.
Go.
Okay,
Go ahead.
So she's a.
So what's the status of
non-response? Okay, go, Keila. I yield to you. Keila?
Well, I was just asking the status of the ethics complaint, and has any public records request been done? Because I'm curious to see how she's been voting, what she's been doing, and then file an ethics complaint to see if it has any teeth. Because I guarantee you, where there's smoke, there's fire. There may be some that we just hadn't yet. So has it started already, or are you about to initiate it?
No, somebody advised Patrick Manteiga that they were thinking about doing that. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, they contacted us. They've gotten wanted a copy of the article. So I haven't seen it filed yet, but you never know. I think they were pretty motivated to do something, so I assume it'll happen, and then let the chips fall where they may. It's but you know, this is the new education system under Governor DeSantis.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, if you wanted if you were encouraging a kid to go to private school, they went, but the public school money didn't go with them. Now it does. And that's where the real problem is nowadays, because every child who leaves to go to private school takes their money with them. It doesn't stay in the public school pot. And therefore, you know, it's a lot more destructive to our public schools, which are already struggling.
Okay,
Exactly.
Let me ask you a question. I want to have some intellectual stimulating
Right.
inquiries. I hear what you're saying, Patrick, but if the schools are suffering, why would parents should have a choice to send their kids?
They should.
Right, and I understand. So
I have no problem with the choice. I have a problem with you being the director of this corporation and sending them to another business. I mean, you know, like I said, either take our 50,000 or take the private company's 100,000, but don't take both. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and there's a definite conflict, and I agree. I'm on board with you with the issue with Stacey Hahn, for real. But you're saying that before, parents had a choice to send the kids to private schools, but the public school monies allotted the public school system didn't go with them. Now it does.
Right.
Right? Did you just say, okay?
And so, you know, to me, that's the problem. I mean, you know, most of these private schools are accepting this public school money, just increase their tuition. So, you know, if you're paying $8,000 to go to Jesuit, now you're going to pay 16 because they're going to take the 8,000 that the public has given them, and they still want to charge more because, frankly, they don't want every poor kid in town to go to the school.
That's a little different. So let's stay on the public, because you can cap it. You can say, well, you can, if you're going to go to a private school, we'll give you this much and cap it at this, so that doesn't happen, what you just described. But if the public schools are failing, and the parents make a decision, let's go to an alternative where my child is going to get a better education, why shouldn't the public fund some of that?
Because we never have. And the reality is that what it does, it allows us to say, hey, just let it fail. We'll all dump out. We can't let the public schools fail. We can't, you know, because the reality is that there's no room for 100% of our school children to go to an alternative to public schools. So what's happening is the most engaged parents out there are getting their kids into private school, and it's leaving lesser engaged parents in the public school system. And those schools are failing as we continue to drag more and more money out of them. And we drag more, we encourage more and more parents who really are very engaged, and that helps schools to go to private schools or to go to charter schools. You know, we can't give up on our public school system. And that's what I see people doing. They're just saying, oh, it's failing, let's bail out. But like I said, we're not bringing all the kids out. We're leaving most of them in. And so we're maybe doing better for 10%, but we're killing the other 90. and that's not a good strategy for this country.
Exactly. 100% correct.
So, folks, remember Stacy Hahn. What district is she in the school board?
She's a South Tampa district.
I don't remember
I don't know what the number.
Yeah, I don't remember the number.
She's been on the school board for a while. So, folks, those who are listening, who are viewing, you should check into this because it is certainly a conflict, and see about who you're going to support if she's challenged. What else do we want to talk about, Patrick?
Well, I mean,
talk about Hillsborough Judge Nancy Jacob fighting for her job. I know you covered this race.
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to talk about that. They're doing, there's been some ethics complaints against her, both for the during the campaign and then also after she was judge. Mm-hmm. She's currently stationed out in Plant City, and it's been a rough start for her. And it's interesting to see if they're going to take her judgeship or they're not going to take her judgeship. The other side of this is that there was a lot of complaints about her opponent, and that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So it's kind of interesting. He got promoted after the public fired him by not re-electing him, and he got promoted by the governor to a higher judicial position, and everything seems to be quiet on that side. But Nancy's got she could be punished, and it could be severe.
Right. And then I think there's a third complaint now because of a joke that she put on or posted, allegedly. She's saying she was hacked, but it's offensive to Muslims.
And I don't know if that one has any legs. I mean, she says she was hacked. I don't know if anybody can prove it, not one way or the other. It was certainly, whatever was on there was not good. And so, but like I said, I just don't know if that's going to be as big a problem to her as the other things that happened. In the campaign, you're not supposed to complain about your opponent. You're not supposed to disparage that person, and she did. And that's pretty clear, and that's pretty evident. The question is what's the punishment? Is it suspension? Is it a fine? Is it? But like I said, I think that the big worry she has is that they would just take her robes away.
Okay, so what else, Patrick? What else are we talking
about? Well, we can always talk about the city of Tampa. That's always a favorite subject for a lot of people.
Lots of fodder there.
Okay, go start, Stephanie.
Well,
Stephanie could start off. I think she had some complaints recently.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you what's hot on the presses is going to be city council salary again. It came before the budget committee yesterday, and I'll just let you know that it was continued till next month, and we've asked for a continuance from the December 21st date. I am a very, very firm supporter of city council's salary being increased, so that we get more minorities, we get more folks that don't, who aren't, I call it independently wealthy, but the bottom line is at $54,000 or $55,000 a year, they are not making enough to pay their mortgage. That their take home is about $3,000 a month. It's not a part-time job. It hasn't been for years. Our city has grown by like 100,000 people or more in the last 20 years. And the last time they had a salary increase by ordinance was in 2005. So everybody else's salary keeps going higher and higher and higher. I believe that former Councilman Dingfelder, reported while you were in Spain that 26% in FY23, that's not this year. That's last year's budget. Okay. We had 26% of City of Tampa workers making well over $100,000 a year. I would argue that I guarantee you it's higher this year. And for them to not at least make half of the average leadership of the city is just absolutely a travesty. And I'm not even talking about all of what they're making. I'm just talking about half. So, and we have to start somewhere. And it was talked about before the elections, and there was some discussion about it. And actually, the administration put a 42% increase in the budget for FY23. And the city council was they were made to look like they were just the devil himself for asking to make 75 grand a year when the mayor's making 180, 190. So,
but Stephanie, back to who requested it initially. We requested.
We did. I did. I'm the one who started that fight. I mean, I'm the one who gathered the data and went on it, because we have neighborhood leaders, as the president of THAN. We have neighborhood leaders who would love to run for council, but they say to us, we couldn't pay our house payment if we were on council. And we don't have the kind of job where we can flex in between our job and the council position. And I would argue that most of them aren't doing a whole lot of flexing. They're spending a whole lot more time on city council than they are on their other positions.
Here's my concern with that, right? So I remember I was one of the people, gun ho. I felt like they needed to make more money. So I didn't like how they weaponized that when we requested it in the first place. And then, the administration approved it or put it in the budget. And then when they accepted it, they were penalized for that, if you will, like an all-out witch hunt. So poor Councilman Dingfelder, Carlson, Hertak, and Gould, they were punished as a result of what we requested. So if it comes up now, it's okay. But it needs to come from somebody where there may be some friendly fires. Maybe some of the other members should sign off on it or bring it up and make a motion or accept it. Because the last time it happened, I'm fearful of those hard-working, dedicated council members that are doing this as a full-time job. Because if you're doing it right, it's full-time. My challenge is the council members that are on their full-time job and are doing this as a part-time, if that type of a role. I don't want you to accept an increase and you're not going to commit to a full-time role. It is not part-time, and your assistant or your aide is not the elected official. You do the work, you show up, you participate and engage within the community that you were voted to serve. So I'm mixed emotions about that right now at this point.
Patrick,
I don't know.
Well, I always believe that you should have a salary that would allow people who aren't rich to do these jobs. It does cost you money to be a city councilman. I mean, there's places you need to go. There's tickets you need to buy. There is clothes you need to wear. And then in this case, and recently in our city, there's risk that you're taking that are huge financial risk for, somebody all of a sudden wants to see, if you have a public record on your phone and things like this. And so the city has been so tough in not covering the council people's cost in regards to these requests and things like that, you're definitely going to need to start paying them more if they're going to have this liability hanging over their head. The job is still a part-time job. It's listed that way. If somebody wants to change it into charter, maybe that's what they should do. Even the county commission still listed as a part-time job. There's nothing against the rules about having a full-time job. I think that there are people who can do work and be council people also. Sometimes in our jobs, we end up running into people, we end up running into problems, we end up having issues with the city that are enlightening. We do construction over at the Cuban Club and historic preservation, and that helps me learn about where the city fails in trying to do permitting and how tough it is to do business in this city when you're trying to build something. And so, like I said, some of these jobs actually help you learn a little bit about it. We have a lawyer on there. I don't expect anybody who's running for city council to completely stop their law practice in order to do it. So I'm okay with somebody doing work and doing the job. But, this job does require at least 30 hours a week, 25 hours a week to stay ahead of it. And during sometimes a year, it requires a lot more than that.
And, I would agree. Like, I wouldn't expect them to close their business, but put in the work. You should be at meetings that are involved, the large portion of the area that you represent. You should be inside of the community. I think we might have been spoiled because, to your point, there may not be a rule, but I think our council member Dingfelder, Carlson, Hertek, Goods, they spoiled us. They were all over this city. They were everywhere. Carlson is in East Tampa because we call him, and when we call him, he shows up. Hertek, Guido, like some of them are very active and engaged, and I think maybe they spoiled us. Vieira too.
Vieira. Okay. Yep. Vieira too.
They may have spoiled us. So maybe it's not a rule, but the expectation, they set the bar high. Dingfelder is like, he was a council member, but he was like a dad, granddad, goddad, consultant, the whole nine, all in the city council member. So we begin to develop relationships with these people beyond the scope of just, hey, come make a vote. We built relationships, and I think that was the expectation. So maybe we were spoiled.
Patrick, when did
No, I agree with you. Now, I don't think we're going to do 40% increase. I think that there's some things that is just hard for the public to swallow. So, I would not mind us setting up a 5% increase over a few years to get it up to maybe 20% more than what they're currently being paid, something along those lines, or maybe come up with some sort of a method like the county has based on population, whereas population increases, you automatically get a raise. County Commission set this up a long time ago, and it's been great for them because they never have to vote on a salary increase. It just happens.
And I personally don't have any issues with even making it after the next election. I don't have any issues with that at all. I would have liked to seen it before this year's elections, but I don't have any issues with making it after the next elections. And so that nobody who's technically on council now is guaranteed to keep that spot for next time. I also have submitted publicly a public comment last week that if you don't want the money, don't take it.
Okay, so I have a quick question, Patrick. When did this become a thing where the council people had to become concerned about having public records?
You mean about salaries?
No, not salaries. With the salary, you mentioned that now people may be more hesitant to run for council because not only is it not enough money, but also there's a risk of having you be the focus of continual public records request of your cell phone and your digital account. So
well, this happened when there was this happened not too long ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when they went after John Dingfelder. They asked him for some of his records, and the city failed to allow their legal counsel to be his legal counsel.
No, and I know that.
And
I followed all of that, but was that ever an issue prior to this happening that now has become a concern?
Not that I know of. I've never heard of it before.
And you would know because
the last time we had anything close to it was Kevin White and the county commission, and they refused it first, but then they changed their minds, and then they did back him up with their legal counsel.
Got it. Yeah. So now something that's never been a concern, now it's going to create hesitancy and fear in someone to be a good public service to the community because that went on in recent years.
And who can afford lawyers?
Right. Okay, so
we even asked
that my
for E&O insurance.
High enough. Is it high now?
That's better.
It
okay,
is.
Great. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
We even started, right? We even started talking about giving them some type of, if you can't represent them, give them E&O insurance of some kind so that they don't have the fear of, for just doing your job, you become under attack for doing your job. So we even mentioned that along with the salary increase. I don't know what happened with that. What were the requests?
I think it's still in la la land. The city says, oh, well, we provide an E&O insurance, but it starts at $500,000. Well, the problem is, even with Goods is nonsense. Are we up to $100,000? I know Councilman Dingfelder was like 75 or 80 grand. It may have been higher in the end, but the bottom line is normal people are not going to see, a $500,000 lawsuit in the course of doing their business. So that, that's just my personal disposition on it. And $500,000 is obviously too high of a deductible, especially if the city's not willing to fork over those funds.
I agree.
Okay.
No, I
So-
agree. You know, and it's so unusual in business. You know, I serve on several boards. They have board insurance. If there's an employee complaint against you, it should cover you. If there's a lawsuit, it should protect you from personally being sued. You know, I serve on the sports authority, and you know, and we've had conversations over with staff. Hey, you know, if somebody all of a sudden decides they want to look in Patrick's personal computer about sports authority stuff, do you help me do that? Do you you know, pay the freight for that? And you know, and the answer's been yeah, they would support us. So you know, it's these lawsuits have been used to scare Dingfelder out of office, to scare anybody from making tough votes against very wealthy companies and individuals. And the city weaponized that, and I think was in collusion with them, frankly.
So what do we do? What does Tampa do to? Is there a charter change? How do they have that be part of, you know, protecting them before someone decides that they want to run for city council? How do we change that, Stephanie?
No,
Well, Bill has been working
get
on
a
it.
better mayor next time.
Okay, and so once we get a better mayor there, then what do they have to do? As
Councilman
Patrick
Carlson
suggested.
has really been keeping it at the forefront. So I think I'll dig in to see where they left off, because it's I think the constituent, we should be trying to keep it before council. They shouldn't have to work so hard to do that. So maybe, Stephanie, one of the things we can dig into by January is how do we keep that up at the forefront so it doesn't get lost by the wayside, because we have some awesome council members. Listen, I'll go to bat for Carlson, Hurtak, and even Guido. They've come out, you know, they are really supporting. I don't want them to have to add that to something to fight for. So I'm willing to commit the time to figure out how we as a community in all neighborhoods can keep that at the forefront, because we want to protect our council members. We want them to do their job.
I mean, that's the whole basis of the conversation about salary. Those two things go hand in hand. Hey, can we talk about something that hasn't happened yet?
Sure.
This is a freestyle this morning, so yes.
Yeah, because this Thursday is the CRA meeting. And one of the things that's on the agenda is cutting back the downtown CRA, which if that happens at the 75, if they cut it back by 25% and put that money back into the general fund, it would increase the general fund by $6.7 million. If they cut it back by 50%, it would increase the general fund by $13.4 million. One of the things that I thought was interesting in the memo for this week is that the county doesn't have to pay in as much, or may not have to pay in as much, if we reduce those numbers. Now, and I have already sent an email requesting the amount of the value that the county actually installs into that. The CRAs are, you know, just for basic information, a CRA is designed to cure slum and blight. And when you go downtown nowadays, there's a little bit on the perimeter, on the periphery, but there's not. It's not like it was 10, 12, or let me see, in 1984 when that CRA was developed. So I just. And the real crook of the matter is that all this money is staying downtown, and the rest of us are kind of
so if
going,
it goes into
we
the
have no
general
money.
fund, once it's in the general fund, could it be used for other areas?
It can be used for any part of the city
okay, good.
at any
that's
time.
A good idea.
Yes, and it would actually pump up. It could pump up the other CRAs. There's 8 CRAs in the city, and there's 6 that really are still struggling to get moving. And those funds could be used for the initial, because CRA money can't be just spent without a basis that's being spent by the city of Tampa. So they have to have that foundational money to build on in order to spend their funds.
You know, I don't disagree. I know that there's been a lot of this downtown CRA funds earmarked, though, for payment back to Venick for infrastructure improvers that he did, that the city promised it would allow his taxes to go back to him to repay him for it. And so I think they have to untangle what we've committed to in these deals that we've made, and honor them, and then see what we can move back. Yeah, I think you're right. Downtown, it's hard to argue anymore that it needs it. And also, we're starting to restrict these CRA dollars to such fine things that they're not as usable for the communities that received them. I mean, Ybor City right now just really doesn't have a whole lot of things it can use the CRA dollars for because of these restrictions.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, Stephanie. It does not have as much blight. And Channelside, that whole Water Street deal is definitely the poster child for what the CRAs can do, and they can continue to do that. But to Patrick's point, I think there's some commitments that may limit how much of that you can decrease when for the taxes. So I'd be interested to see how it plays out. Because I do think they can reduce it by some, but I think there's some commitments that goes well beyond 50 years now. So we won't see that change anytime soon, if it's even possible.
Is that all you wanted to
Or
say?
we'd have to commit it out of general funds.
True. But otherwise, we are committed to the CRA for downtown until 2043. So,
right.
It's time to at least take a look at it and weigh the cost benefits. My big question is if the city cuts any of that, and this is supposedly after the obligations, if the city cuts any of that, is the county in any way, shape, or form obligated to keep those county funds within the city limits, or can they just spend them however they want? It's their budget.
The county can take their money out. And that's one of the arguments with keeping the CRAs. Because some CRAs, 50% of the money is county money or even more. Okay. And so if you cut it, all you're going to do is just take that money out of the city and let the county spend it wherever it wants to. So there's a risk in getting rid of the CRAs that you overall are going to reduce the amount of money, tax money in the city that's being used. And so I know with Ybor, the county contributions a lot. They've been decreasing the county contribution with downtown quite a lot, and so but the money in downtown is just such a big number that the county and I'm sure the county under this current county commission will want its money back, and so you could end up with a net loss overall.
Wow, this will be interesting Thursday. I tell you, in other news, CRA, East Tampa, they have quite a bit, their CRA continues to roll over. And so me being, entering the space of development, I absolutely adore what they did on Water Street. I am just in amazement. And like I said, it serves as a poster child. So, when they say Tampa's one of the greatest places to live, I see it. Like, I get it. Forbes was absolutely correct. Because when you go to Water Street, that is just to die for. So in looking at East Tampa being the oldest CRA, the largest CRA in the state of Florida, and having not as much as Channelside or downtown, but they have over $31 million in a pot that's sitting there that as a result of not being able to implement programs and redevelopment in that area. It won't be a Water Street. I get it. But just not being able to see significant development to help make something transformative is just such an upset. There's some opportunities that have recently come up. I'll be curious to see when they do whatever they're going to do with Channelside, as I continue to try to push for something transformational. I've spoken with all the developers that are great. And some of the ideas that's come forth, they thought were good ideas, but that wasn't their vision. So you can't force those developers to do anything in East Tampa, but why not embrace those ideas that are coming forward? Because you hadn't been able to do anything significant in that area in quite some time. They have they have a comp plan from 2004 that most of the things that's in it has not been implemented. But Channelside can take a 1985 comp plan and win. You see what's there now? That comp plan was 1985. And they're doing all of that based on a comp plan from 1985. It still hasn't been rewritten. So I'm hopeful that as we put some energy behind East Tampa and push for transformation that we'll start to see. It won't be Water Street, but at least it can be something significant, meaningful, and transformational for East Tampa. Thought I'd throw that in.
Okay. One last thing before we sign off. Good ruling from the Florida Supreme Court rules that police can't hide their identity behind Marsy's Law or victims. Is that something that you followed, Patrick, that you're going to be commenting on in your
Oh, I
publication?
did, and I cheer on what the court did. I mean, it's fantastic. You know, and Marsy's Law, the media didn't like it because, you know, it got in the way. But what you saw with these police officers, I think it was in Tallahassee, was they used it to the extreme. They used it to cover up their names after they were involved in a shooting. And there was concerns that perhaps that wasn't a clean shooting, that there was problems with it. And they wanted their identities hidden. And therefore now the public doesn't know if it's got bad cops or good cops on the street.
Right.
So Curiel, who wrote the opinion, he's a very proud Cuban American. He was actually born in Cuba. So he wrote the opinion, and he said that Marsy's Law's intent was to be able to not be able to locate victims, but not to hide their identity. So I think it's great. In 2018, when they revised the Constitution, they had the meeting to propose revisions. I thought it was bad then. If you're a victim, yeah, we certainly want to protect true victims, but there are victims that lie and make false accusations, and their identities should not be hidden. Defendants' names are not hidden.
Well, and the issue wasn't just protecting a name. In other words, you know, in the Ybor shooting case, knowing the victims was beneficial. It was beneficial to understand what the crime was. And the public, so, you know, Marsy's Law wasn't intended to protect everybody's name. It was intended to protect a name if, because of the type of crime it was, it would protect the victim. And like in the Ybor shooting, I don't think any of the victims are worried about retribution. So in this case, you know, hiding victims' names and protecting them isn't really as necessary. And so I think what the Florida Supreme Court did is saying, you know, just this standard that we're not going to give you the name isn't necessarily the correct standard, that you can give the names and still have protection under Marsy's Law. And so I think they're making the police think a little bit more about it, and state attorneys think a little bit more about it, because in the past they were just, you know, they just said, okay, you just don't get it. And it, like I said, it's problematic. Sometimes you do need to know who the victims are to understand the crime.
Yes, and so this is Florida Supreme Court Justice Curiel. He wrote the opinion. That's a very good opinion. I was very happy to see that, because sometimes, yes, we do want to know who the accuser is. Right. Sometimes the accuser is lying, and their identity, their name should not be protected. Good opinion. Anything else that we want to, before we wrap up and go enjoy the rest of our Saturday? Stephanie?
Thank you so much for coming on, Patrick. We really enjoyed having you. Yay!
Always a treat.
Sorry to join you at the last minute. Your Christmas season is very busy. Right after this, I'm going shopping to make sure my wife stays with me for another 10, 20 years.
It doesn't matter if you're late. I operate under Cuban time. Okay, so the La Gaceta, you should subscribe if you haven't already, and it's a great read every week. I learn a lot about what's going on in the Tampa Bay region. He does a phenomenal job of covering a lot of the issues and a lot of the stories. Thanks,
That's
Patrick.
$35 you'll spend this year. It's a great Christmas present.
That's all that it is. $35.
Yep, it's $35 a year.
That's not expensive at all.
No, not when you get
or you go to the
a year.
stores and buy it, because you got $100 down. So I just need to get a membership instead of looking for it at Wawa's.
Yeah. It's a great Christmas present.
That's right, exactly. We
promote it. That's a great Christmas present. Send us the $35. Call us, and we'll send a little card to the person saying that you've gifted a La Gaceta, and we'll start the subscription before the end of the year.
That's the best way to do it. All right.
Okay,
Well, y'all
well-
have a Merry Christmas. I got to dip. I've got another meeting.
I got to dip too. Haiti Oropesa, Stephanie
Thank you.
Pointer, Keela McCaskill, thank you for tuning in. Till next time.
Thank
And
you,
everyone,
Patrick.
enjoy your holidays.
Have a good night.
Enjoy your holiday.
Thank you.